Welcome to Simple Sense for Small Business. Mistakes we make so you don't have to. And today we are not on a virtual Zoom podcast interview. No, I have IRL, my friend Chris Jones here. And we're going to be talking about when you start a business, or if you are managing a side hustle and thinking about starting the business full time, what are some of the risks that you're going to want to look out for, and some resolutions when there are some hiccups. So Chris, first of all, you have to read his bio in the video description, although it is very dense. I will tell you, we just figured out in about 6 to 9 months, we will have known each other for 20 years. And his background is varied with entrepreneurship, starting businesses, failing at business. We'll talk about that because that's why we are here. And succeeding in business with selling a multi-million-dollar business. So Chris Jones, not to mention your novel and writing your first book. Yeah. So please introduce yourself however long or short you'd like to make it, because we're going to be here for a little bit talking about all kinds of fun stuff with business.
Yeah, I started my first company right out of college. I was 23 and started doing accounting and bookkeeping in the Princeton area. And from there, I really got a taste for tech and started working as an outsourced CFO for tech companies, and it's sort of at the end of 99, 2000, raised $2 million for a text-to-speech company, helped sell our software to Microsoft, then cashed out of that company, put it all in another one, a mobile gaming in 2001, and we were ready to take off. I raised money August 31st, 2001, and then 11 days later, universe changed. And all of our big phone companies who were going to buy our mobile game, they
backed out. This was 9/11.
This is 9/11, yeah. So
tragic.
So I lost everything I had, and then some, and deep in debt, and then just kind of worked my way back. We'll talk about that a little bit later, and just built my consulting firm back again, and then got tired of that, and then was brought in to be this co-founder and CFO of a construction equipment rental company. Built that up in 2009, built that up to 11 locations in 10 years, 120 employees, and then we sold it to a private equity company 2019.
For a lot of money.
And 2020.
The kind of money people only dream about, okay? So... and
in 2020, my last day was actually as CFO and co-founder was when the private equity company was January 31st, 2020. But one thing I always wanted to do is write novels. And so we went right into pandemic. I moved to Barbados and lived on the beach for a couple of years and wrote my novel and came back. And so now I'm back in the States and
working on your second novel, the
working
sequel.
On the second one, as long as and as well as dealing with, I have several startups in my portfolio, so I get to help them out too.
Well, so the thing is, when we first started talking about doing this, and we were almost going to do it virtually, and I said, "Hey, you want to get out of Dodge and come up to Connecticut, take a little respite?" And you were like, "Absolutely." So I thought, because of your accounting background, and that you were an outsourced CFO, that maybe we'll talk about something with numbers. And you were like, that is so boring. Why would we do that? Instead, why don't we talk about the risks of starting a small business? And I said, well, okay, that I can absolutely relate to that, even though people who are watching this are going to have already started the business. So let's start out with, when you first decided you were going to start your business, what went through your mind?
Well, I was a young man then, and I didn't know better. And I just had a personality and I had a bad experience with a big corporation. And I said, well, I'm glad that happened to me at 22 and not 52. Mm-hmm. And I just said, I'll never let that happen again. And I'll go out and this is before the freelance economy. This is 1991.
Oh, yeah.
So there's no freelance economy, and everyone says you can't do that. And I said, too late. I already have a client. And Then I made a good relationship with the accounting firm Witham Smith and Brown, and was able to help their clients just fix their books. It was just something I was good at doing. But I think when you go out and you're starting again, youth was on my side. I didn't know better, but it was also a struggle. I mean, there were days when I had to decide, do I put gas in my car or do I eat? So,
but you weren't a CPA, right?
No, I didn't go that route. Well, if we really want to get real here, I'll tell you that I barely got through college. I had really severe test anxiety. So I'm a 3-time CFO of the year. I don't have an accounting degree. They kicked me out of the accounting department.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I love when I interview my friends and I still keep learning stuff.
I just, I'm really good at it. I just wasn't good at taking a test. So I was never, ever going to sit for a CPA exam. So I wouldn't do that.
But being an outsourced CFO, you didn't, it's not like it was a legal requirement to be licensed in that capacity, right? Right.
No, I'm just really good at it, at accounting and building companies and figuring out operational. So I'm a real operations person. I have a CPA to do my tax. So don't ever feel embarrassed. That was like one of the things I when I started doing better, I'm like, I'm getting my own CPA. And because it's just not something, if you're not on top of it, like any other area, it's just, you need to be focused on it. So yeah, getting out and starting and realizing it and learning so much. I was lucky to be brought in by the CPA firm because, and the things I learned. So I'll share this because this was one of the best lessons I learned. You know, when I was there at my client, it was a reinsurance intermediary. I didn't even know what reinsurance was at the time.
We have that in common too.
Yeah, I had no idea what it was. And what happens with reinsurance, all the money of premium and claim flows through this company, and they didn't know whose money was whose. So that was my job, to figure out whose money was whose. Now, in 1991, there's no QuickBooks. There's really aren't too many small business software. Eventually, we got ACPAC. So I was doing a lot of this stuff in just spreadsheets and just trying to figure it all out and figure out where the money came and where it went. So it was interesting. But the things that the auditors taught me, they said, first they said, Chris, it's not about the numbers. Just like we were saying, it's not about the numbers. It's all about people. And you got to get really good with people if you want to succeed. I'm like, okay, I can do that. Then they said, you got to create value. I said, what do you mean create value? I do bank recs and general ledger and journal entries. And they said, no, you figure out a way, increase revenue, decrease costs, maximize efficiencies. So everywhere I went, every client I had, even as a young man, I decided how can I increase revenue? How can I decrease their costs? How can I maximize their efficiencies if I can't do any of those? And that's kind of the way I've gone through everything. And if you're an advisor of any kind, you can kind of take that approach, and somewhere along the line, you can help out with that. So yeah, then it was really just, I think entrepreneurship chose me more than I chose it. What was also fun was going to banks with $200 to my name, and I got thrown out of my first bank. And the guy said, get the hell out of my bank, which was... Why? Because I only had $200.
Oh, that...
And he said, I'm not opening an account. He said, get the hell out of my bank.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. And then I went to another bank. They were a little bit more polite, but they said
declined
no.
to work with you.
And then I went to a National Westminster Bank, and this was like in Lawrenceville. Then when it became Bank of America, the bank manager there was a woman. She got up, she shook my hand, welcomed me in. She said, of course, we're going to open an account for her. And I sent her $1 million in mortgage business from my clients that year.
Wow.
So never judge a book by its cover, I guess.
Yeah, but let's go back to the numbers part of the equation, pun intended, where I guess it was your client at the time said your job is to maximize revenue, decrease.
Well, it was the auditors who actually told me that. The client didn't say it.
Right. So increase revenue, decrease costs, and maximize efficiency. So, but the thing is, there are some business owners that don't numbers aren't their thing. So maybe that's where one of these risks come into play of, all right, well, I can't afford an accountant, but I'm not good at numbers. So because we saw a lot of that during the pandemic with business owners that didn't want to do their own taxes, but they also didn't know enough to know when the accountant wasn't great either. So,
Right.
So what happens if you're not a numbers person and not a CFO? How does a business owner manage the numbers if they don't like numbers?
Well, I don't like marketing, but I still have to do it. So part of owning your own business is you got to do a lot of things you don't like to do. You think I wanted to do my own bookkeeping after I did everyone else's books? No, you don't. So there's a certain part of you're going to have to embrace the things that you don't like until you can pay someone else to do it or find cheaper labor. There's overseas labor on Fiverr. There's all sorts of ways to get around it that you can find something that's afford your budget, or you're just making an excuse. And now you got to ask yourself. So the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is it's as much as of a personal journey and a personal development, because all your issues are going to come to the surface too when you go in. Where are your fears? What are the things that you're really good at? Where do you keep gravitating to? What are the things you absolutely don't like? And then it's either get someone else to do it, right? Or figure out a way. And I know it's hard. I know it's hard because you're trying to balance numbers and this and that and trying to figure out what's coming in. But even that, you should still have, I think anyone, I don't care. And I had a lot of artistic clients because I enjoy working with creative people. You still need to understand a P&L. You still need to understand a balance sheet. You need to know where your money is coming and not. I can't tell you how many companies I had to walk in because the CEO was too trusting of their bookkeeper and there was a mess. And sometimes even
embezzlement. Yeah.
Because,
because they didn't know what to not know. They didn't know what they didn't know, and they didn't know that it was something they could have maybe prevented by paying a little bit more attention.
So this is one thing that people have asked me to do for them when, we had this relationship, is they needed to hire a full-time accountant. Well, I would interview them. And I don't think it's that bad. If you're trying to hire, it's like if I was trying to hire, a really deep tech person, I couldn't quiz them on their knowledge. So this is where you have your friends in your network. Like, hey, would you mind giving this person a technical interview? I'm going to interview them to see if they're a fit. Will you give them a technical interview? I know that's a little bit way down the path for people, but when you're thinking about, don't think, oh my God, how am I ever going to hire a bookkeeper? I don't know anything about, I don't even know what questions to ask. You're right, you don't. Although you probably could Google them, but go to one of your CPA clients. Maybe they'll give you a list of questions. And even if you don't understand the answers, write them down and they'll say, yeah, wait a second, this or not. Or have one of your friends, or maybe you have a friend who is a CFO. I'm sure they're not going to mind doing a 15-minute phone interview with somebody just to see, are they technically competent?
But this is exactly the impetus of this conversation. When you had said starting your own business, when you work for a company, you have everyone around you because they're, whatever type of business it is, there's maybe other employees that have the skills and strengths that you can bounce off of or rely on or delegate to, et cetera. And when you start your own business, you're kind of like a silo of one, and you have to develop the network. You have to develop the people with the knowledge of the things that you aren't good at or don't know how to do. So can you maybe share with us when you, so we're past the progressive solutions, you're an outsourced CFO, and you stumble upon somebody who's starting the business, the construction rental equipment business. And it's a brand new business from scratch, right? Now, it wasn't just you, though. There were other people there.
I had two partners in that company, too, and they were cousins, and the name of the company is Durante Rentals, and I was bought in at the very beginning because they felt it was really important to have someone manage the finances. And that was, they had experience in the industry before, but they were operations and sales, and they needed finance to round out. So that's a good balance. I know having partners sometimes is difficult, but making sure you have and where you are with that, having someone who handles the operations, someone who handles your external sales, and someone who handles the finance, that's a pretty good trio. HR too, and if someone can do that, but it's really, really important to make sure you have someone who covers all the areas. It just allows everyone to not to be siloed, but to be able to think in their area's subject matter expertise. And then the 3 or 4, if you have another area that's in like maybe pure marketing. Marketing is very different than sales. I think a lot of people knew who aren't a marketing consultant. They kind of say, oh, marketing and sales, it gets lumped together. They're very, very different. I'm very good at selling. I was very good at pitching. I'm horrible at marketing. That's about your brand. That's about, doing all the things you need to do to constantly be out. Like, you're really good at it. I mean, that's something you've been really, really good at. And I've always admired you for, you are very good at marketing and be able to build a brand. That's not something.
You can't close a deal on that. It's nice when you can create a really beautifully branded meme of some kind that helps people to focus. Okay, that's who they are. That's what they do. But then when you're on the phone with somebody and having to close a deal, that's a completely different skill set.
Yeah.
And so
like people for the numbers thing, if you like to make me do marketing stuff, it's the same thing. Like, I'd rather be just punched in the face. It's a whole lot less painful.
Well,
because I just don't think that way.
Right.
So I get it. And when people say, "Oh, numbers, I hate them," I get it. It's hard when it's not your area, your modality that you like to think in. So it's then get help. Talk to people who are good at it, and try not to get too frustrated.
So one of the, that's easier said than done. But I think. Would you say that in all of the businesses you've worked with and consulted with and the businesses you've started, there are a lot of things that we could do well and a few things we don't do well.
Right.
So, I think as humans that we're trying to figure something out. It's like maybe you're great at marketing, but not great at sales, or vice versa. But maybe you're also really good at communication and people skills and HR or interviewing people for whether it's a new employee or a client. But my point is, like, what have you seen with when you're starting a business? Where are the areas that most people fail? Is there a single point of failure, or is there something that is a general challenge for folks?
I think people coming out of the corporate world, if you've gone that switch, you worked at a fairly sizable corporation, I think one of the things that they neglect or just don't even think about is the lack of resources that you have. So in the corporate world, you have plenty of resources usually, but you're playing this political game, and that's very draining. Like, that's not something I can do. I just don't do it well. And I don't want to do it. I have no interest in doing it. It's just not, I don't play that game very well.
Is that your phone?
It might be.
It's vibrating.
Sorry.
I don't know if you can hear it. That's the beauty of going live. You never know what's going to happen.
And then as an entrepreneur, you're always fighting against it. You have the freedom. You have the team that can work together. You can build the environment that you want and the culture that you want. You're not honed into this, whatever this culture was that was developed over how many years from being in a big company. But now you have the ability to build your own culture, but you will be resource constrained. Money, time, people. All these things are really important, and that's what you have to deal with. So
But it's a process. You're not going to just start your business and everything is flowing perfectly all at once at the same time. And that's why you kind of pointed out a little bit ago where you're like, it's a little bit of a personal journey too, because you're uncovering things that maybe you didn't realize that, I kind of suck at that. So now what, right?
Because you never had to do it before. You do gain an appreciation for people who do that. It's like I can say, like, I'm so bad at marketing. So when I meet people who are good at it, I know what questions I want to ask them. I know how to appreciate them. And when you have staff, you will appreciate them. So I think that's really, really important when you make that jump, is understand you're going in and like, you got to create all your own systems. You got to create an accounting and billing system and keeping track of your time. That's another big thing that I'm really, really big on is keeping track of your time. we're all, for the most part, we're going to be knowledge workers. I'm sure most of the people who are tuning in aren't building a manufacturing company or a products-based business. If they're doing more of selling consulting, time, and services, your time is very, very valuable. You're a knowledge worker. You create knowledge and you sell your knowledge. So keeping track of your time, because that's really your inventory, is your time. And if you bill by the hour, it's absolutely, that is your inventory. And you can't give an hour away. So you got to figure out what tasks you need to do. What are your key working hours? Don't do your expense report in the middle of the day. That's a great time to be meeting. Like you said, go have a lunch with somebody, meet someone, be out there doing things. So it's so important that you really understand. I keep a log of my time. You can be sophisticated about it and use a spreadsheet, or you can just be very low tech about it and just pen and paper and just keep track. When you do your to-do list for the day, make sure you estimate how much time is going to take, so you don't schedule 18 hours worth of stuff, which is what I used to do when I was younger. And then, that's like when you're doing your to-do list, I used to just make this list and then feel like crap at the end of the day because I got nothing done. Then in one day I put how many estimated hours that task was going to take. Yeah, well, I was scheduling 16 hours worth of stuff in a 8 or 10 hour day. Of course, you're going to not get stuff done.
Well, can we just talk about something we touched on before with when you don't have time and you want to outsource?
Yeah.
But then you're like, I don't have the money to pay for outsourcing. So I kind of have this, I have an opinion, I have a very strong opinion. If you don't have time, then you should have some financial resources. Because if you're using all your time to build revenue and build, lead gen activity, then you should have money coming in. If you don't have any money, then you have the time to substitute the things you would otherwise like to outsource. Where do you see that this is maybe a confusion for people, that they really believe I don't have the time and I don't have the money? What happens how is that possible in a business?
Well, you have to be ruthless with your time. And again, for you to say that I don't have time, it's because how are you breaking up your time, right? Can you break it up into just easy things? Am I doing administrative work for the company? Am I doing business development? Am I doing the delivery of whatever service I'm doing? And am I doing marketing and sales, new business, however you're getting that? And if you just keep those four, and then you realize, oh my God, I did 3 hours of administrative time. Well, that's no good. That's not going to help you build anything. That's where your time is going. Did you have to mess around with your internet connection? Did you have to mess around with it? And I get it. Like, you can have these days where maybe you had a financial thing, like a tax thing that you had to deal with, and you had to call your accountant, and all of a sudden, but you start getting really ruthless with your time and not having things that aren't going to create value, and saying, all right, look, I want to talk to you, Linda, but I gotta go. Can we talk after 6?
Yeah.
And because I need these days, this is my billable time.
Boundaries.
Yeah. So you got to be ruthless with your time,
and
that's
honor
hard.
Your own boundaries.
Yeah. So I think that's part of it, of making sure that how you're handling your day and managing your day, that'll help you. And like you said, if you're billing so much, if you're so busy that the money's coming in, yeah, there's lots of low cost opportunities. It all depends on, I think you have to take an inventory of yourself and like, who are you? What are you good at? And even you can break it down to, in the ideal situation, you should be only doing the things that you're great at.
Okay. Well, we have somebody here who says, I'm lost with your question. I think Anthony on LinkedIn had asked that. The question was, Anthony, because I have an opinion that if you don't have any time, then you are probably making some money, one would think, so that you can outsource. But some people don't have time or money. So we're kind of trying to figure out, if you don't have either, what's amiss in the business, because you can't do it all anyway if you want to scale a business. And we're talking about scaling a business and not being stressed out with having to do everything. We can't do everything in a business because we're not good at everything. It's impossible to be very strong in every area of a business. And, I think at one point I figured out there were like 21 different hats we have to wear. There's accounting, which is different from bookkeeping. There's HR. There's customer service. There is technology, insurance, legal matters. I mean, that's just 7 right there.
And any one of those can suck your day out. So what we're saying is, if you say, I don't have time and I don't have money, okay, let's say you absolutely don't have money and you just feel you're working all the time. It's what are you working on? Mm-hmm. So you need to then shift your time so you're working on the things that are going to create enough revenue so you can then pay for the things that you're doing. If you're saying, I don't have time and I don't have money, maybe you're spending 3 or 4 hours on non-billable work.
Yeah.
Where all non-billable work should be done before or after, before, get up earlier or stay up later and try to get that done. So maybe that will clear it up a little bit, that you have to be ruthless with and that's where I keep saying, you have to be ruthless with your time and set boundaries on everything else. And it's hard when you're doing a family and, people call and they're all excited that you're starting a business. They all want to talk to you, but you need to go get your clients and make sure that they're happy too.
So Anthony is saying that solopreneurs don't have either. And,
on day one, yeah, you're right.
Right. That's absolutely true. And what we're talking about is if you decided to start a business, you have to go into this knowing that, number one, this could be a starting point. But obviously, you would want to have a goal of making money, because how are you going to pay your bills anyway?
You have to be, this goes back, ruthless with your time. Mm-hmm. If you're not willing to be ruthless with your time and say, I'm really just focused on trying to get my new clients.
Yeah.
So it should be on business development, and some things you're going to have to let go.
All right. So you started out as a solopreneur, but eventually built up a business with some partners, which is its own dynamic.
Yeah, well, that was going from a consulting firm. So I got rid of my consulting firm in 2007 because I just felt I didn't want to do it anymore. I just wanted to build a company. So 2009 is when we started Durante Rentals. And yeah, it was a whole different experience. And there we each had our specialties. So I did get to focus on just handling the finance. But I had to learn a whole new industry and learn about debt financing and things like that. So it had its challenges. It was definitely very, very hard. We worked long, long hours.
Okay. But was there ever a time where you felt you were very satisfied with all the, did it ever smooth out?
Did whatever smooth out?
Like, you said you worked like 20 hours a day, right? So
no, not that much, but no, not until the sale. It was a grind for 10 years. It was an absolute grind. But I'm going to ask everyone here, would you give up 10 years of your life for the rest of your life? So are you willing to go through hell, absolute hell, to get the rest of your life? Because when you get an exit.
Well, look, can we talk about how sometimes we forget about the exit strategy?
Should always have
Did you have an exit strategy from the beginning?
From day one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you did that together, though, right? It was a brainstorming. So again, because you had resources of the dynamic of having other people in your sphere, when you're a solopreneur, you have to kind of find those resources, right?
Yeah.
And this is the thing, since somebody was bringing up about solopreneurs not having money or time. If you don't have the money, then you could maybe form, I'm thinking when I didn't have resources, you kind of form friendships or strategic alliances with people that have similar goals to accomplish, right, in their business. So if you were to join a networking group or join a group that you talk about different aspects of your business, then maybe you can have like another set of eyes and ears.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because most people join networking groups for business development, right? So that's what we do. But sometimes you might meet someone who could help you with certain areas of your business that's more maybe administrative. maybe that's their business, and maybe you don't have the money to pay them right away. But like, okay, can we trade? Like, say you and you're a marketing consultant, I do in the bookkeeping, and I need help building a brand, getting collateral done, a logo and all this stuff. And that's stuff you can do easily, but your books are a mess and you need help. So we swap, right?
Yeah.
So now I get to list you as another client. You're getting what I do, and hopefully you're free to do your business, right? And not worry about this. You're not stressed about handling it. And I'm getting marketing that I need, which brings enough business, and I can carve out the time to handle your work.
Right.
So yeah, those strategic alliances, they really can work. I mean, we're a good example. I mean, this is 20 years that we've become friends too, but we did business together. But a lot of the people I did business with, accountants and lawyers, and because they were the best resource for me for referrals. And it went both ways. I would go into a company, their books were a mess, and then get them a tax because I didn't do tax. So I think the other thing that you also want to go out as part of your business strategy is figure out who would be the best sources of referrals for me, and what can I give them? Like, don't always ask for what
can you do for me?
Yeah, what can you do? How can it be very mutual? How can you help each other set? And maybe it becomes a formal strategic relationship, or just something like, hey, let's just refer back and forth. How can we help each other? And find those people who are good at the things you're not. But first, you got to do that self-assessment.
Well, I think that's, when I used to have a friend of mine, we would do every Friday, we would have an accountability call. We did that for about 2 years. And then with our financing business during the pandemic, we were also working 15, 17 hours a day. It was horrendous. And that kind of went by the wayside. But I can tell you, there were weeks that I didn't want to talk with my accountability partner because of why we resist things, we avoid things, we ignore things. And these are all the negative emotions that we go through on things that are hitting where we're not super strong, maybe,
right,
or we're not super healthy in our mindset on how we approach various aspects of our business. And that's just going to happen. That's natural. That's why this guy that I either muted or blocked or whatever, he was, just kind of antagonizing the reality of, things aren't always perfect, but he said, oh, you should just stop talking. It's like, well, that's part of the problem. If we're not talking about it, or we're not discussing it with people that we can align with, then how are we going to get better?
You can disagree, but all I can do is give you from what I've seen work with other entrepreneurs and what's worked for me. As like, you just got to it's all about choices. Each day you are making all the choices in your life and in your business that are going to either bring you forward or bring you backwards. And you got to decide those choices that you make are really, really important. Again, it's as much as a personal development process as it is a business development process, because you are, especially if you're a solopreneur, especially if you're sitting there by yourself. And I think it's great. And I think the part that you were bringing up about not wanting to do that accountability call is because it's the areas where we know, maybe we kind of phoned it in a little bit on ourselves that week for whatever reason. I'm not saying there aren't good reasons. You're always going to have family issues. You're always going to have a health issue. There's always going to be something that can interrupt you from that distract you to take you away from handling that. And again, this goes back to making those boundaries and making those decisions. And are you going to be able to please everyone? No, you're not. This is the reality. But hopefully, if you're happy to build just this practice, then you will get to that point where you're able to be more flexible. I can tell you right away, even as a young man, that there were certain moments I got to take advantage of because I didn't have a 9-to-5. And I had like weekends that just were going really well. So I extended it to a Monday. Didn't happen often. And then I can also tell you the weekends where I worked, weeks straight with not a break.
And then that's too huge impact.
Right. So you got to decide, what it is. It's okay. Are we allowed to use
The
semi-foul language on this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think there are any kids watching
All right.
our show.
You have to embrace the suck.
Oh, that's not even.
All right.
That's not bad.
I don't know.
I thought you were going to drop the F-bomb.
No, not that. Right? There's going to be so many things that just absolutely suck and that you're bad at. And that's okay. But you got to embrace that suck. You got to embrace that. It's not going to last forever. It's going to feel like it's lasts forever because you're doing things you absolutely hate, or you're just in a position where you're just frustrated that these clients aren't getting back to you, or you're not able to close the deal as fast as you need. And now you got money, challenges too. One thing I did want to throw in that we talked about kind of offline is what people often ask me if they're in a corporate job, like, when was it okay to leave? When did they think it was leave? And I came up with a formula that seemed to work for a lot of people. When your side hustle is 70% of your income of your full-time job.
Really?
Yeah. Then it seems that it's pretty safe, because if your side hustle, which you hope to then become your business,
Right,
is 70% of your current income. So say you make $100,000 and now you're making 70. So you're actually making 170, but you're probably working 40 to 45 hours at your main job and another 20 to 25. So you're probably at 6 months to a year running very ragged. And that you're going to go through that if you want to be safe, if managing risk. Or, you might have a partner in your life that's very risk averse and they're having a hard time with this. You may need to do that to make them feel good and say, look, 70%, because now when you do leave your job, you have 45 hours to make up that other 30%. Right? Or even 20 hours. You got an extra 20 hours because maybe you're working 25 in your side hustle. You're working 70 hours a week, which is a lot. I mean, that's 7 days a week. That's 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's a lot. And that's going to put stress on a family, or, any kind of, or yourself and your relationships in general. But if you get to that point, you can do anything for 6 months before your life starts to fall apart. And 6 months is what I've used. It's proven as to be a solid data point over and over, that you can be strategically unbalanced, I call it, where you are focused completely on your work for a certain period of time, and then you go back to being balanced and having a balanced life. But if you need to get going, so as soon as you get that 70%, now, you may not need to work 70 hours anymore, but now you can easily get that 20 hours back or 25, and now you're going to make that out to 30%, because you're able to do 70, right?
Yeah.
With the distraction of your work, with the commitments and everything else, if you're able to get to 70%, I feel really confident that you would be able to get that other 30% when you left your full-time job. But it's usually enough to make a fair deal with a risk-averse partner or spouse. Or if you're not, you might have, a super-duper, very positive and encouraging partner, which was really great. And you might feel accountable and responsible to say, wait, I don't want to hurt my family. I don't want to hurt my relationships, so this or that, and wait. And that's okay too. That's okay.
Well, we did talk about having supportive partners, whether it's in life or who you align yourself with in business, that if there is any friction in a very close relationship, that's going to be a struggle. And I mean, I don't even think we should even broach that, because that's something personally someone would have to work on with, whether it's their spouse, life partner, or business partner. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I've been through having unsupportive relationships, and something goes by the wayside.
Yeah. I saw it in my mom and dad. My dad started a business. My mom really wasn't all that supportive of it. She wasn't hindering him, but she wasn't supportive. There's a difference, right? She said, I don't want to stop another man's dream, right? But not stopping and supporting are very, very different. And I experienced it even in my life too, for a while. And it's really important to have that supportive family, that someone, because there are going to be the days when you doubt yourself. If we're being honest, again, it's this personal journey. It's this personal development journey, and you're going to doubt yourself. And it helps to have someone who's got your back, who supports you. You got to find that cheerleader, whether it's your best friend or someone else that a mentor. You need that someone. And if you do have you're in a close personal relationship, it's really important they understand what's going on too, and why some days you come home and you're just completely exhausted or moody or angry because things just went sideways. And it's different in a corporation where you have a lot of other people to buffer all that.
That's right. Well, I think too, if you have ambitions to start your own business, but you do it as a side hustle first to kind of have a softer landing with all that it involves, I think you can start ironing those things out as you learn together with the partner, with the spouse or whatever. Because the thing is, and one of the reasons why this channel was even birthed was because of the mistakes that we have gone through ourselves with different businesses we started or managed. And it's very hard to embrace mistakes when they're happening. And it isn't until we kind of get away from it a little bit to have learned, okay, going through it was really bad. But then when you kind of learn what the solutions were implemented, or you uncover different resolutions, it becomes a little bit more like you almost like glad it happened, because now you know what to do, or something that you didn't know before to know how to put it in place to prevent it from happening again. Does that even make sense?
Yeah, because one of the early mistakes I made early on in my career, I was so busy with my billable work that I didn't constantly go out to find new business. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, the project finished. And I was like, uh-oh, now I don't have anything. Or my billable hours went from 40 down to 10 or 15. And that wasn't going to be enough. But because I wasn't always out marketing, I wasn't building, or I was just relying on that one really good referral source, and they didn't have anything for me, now what? So I think I learned that always join those marketing groups or your networking groups, constantly be in touch, and always have business development. And this is a hard thing when you're a solopreneur, when you're even in a small business, and you might have a partner, you might even have a few employees. You can't ever stop.
New development,
biz
dev was what they call it, right? Biz dev.
You gotta always be doing it.
Hunting.
And you gotta always hunting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you always got to be hunting. Finding that group that works well with you, finding that area, finding those referral partners, those strategic partners where you're both helping each other out and giving each other what they need. But the mistake is like, oh my God, I'm so busy billing and these projects, and I'm doing all this, and I'm great. Money's coming in, I'm billing, but now when's that project going to end? Yeah. And sometimes you don't know when they're going to end. Sometimes they just surprise you, right? They run out of funding, or they cancel the project. Mm-hmm. But
here's a story when I was doing financial planning, and plus having owned an insurance agency, a lot of the calls that come in, it's a lot of customer service that happens. So I was complaining to he was a financial planner when I was selling insurance. So I've been a financial planner, but I also had an agency. So I almost launched into complaining about the phone ringing. Like, okay. Right now, it's like I kind of laugh at myself. And before I could even finish the sentence that would have revealed that I was complaining, he said, I said, yeah, and the phone, right? And he goes, yeah, it's magical, isn't it? And I was like, ooh, that's a different perspective. Because when he had people calling him, there were opportunities to make money. Whereas sometimes in the insurance business, people are calling and it's a time suck, or they're complaining because their rate went up, so it really is about, and that's another reason why when you're when you start your small business or you're running a small business, and even if you have employees and partners, it still can be very lonely where you have to align with other people so you can get different perspectives to flush out, here. And ever since that was almost 20 years ago, I still remember that story. And I still remember we were on the phone talking about the phone. And I remember hearing his voice. It was just he was just so genuine in his joy about the phone being an opportunity versus what I was going through, which is people only calling me to complain or have a problem. So
do we want to take a pause and see if people have any questions? And
I don't know if there's no questions coming in right now, but I do have here Marquetta. Totally understand Anthony's concerns. I think Anthony, you meant was the LinkedIn guy that I had to block because he was
making art.
So Marquetta is an artist, and while working on I'm working on. Then she said here late for admin.
Yeah,
she doesn't like marketing. Yeah, stay up late. Yep.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, as an author, it's the same thing. And again, I'm horrible at marketing, and book marketing is
really hard.
Really hard.
It's a different animal.
So I really get you. It's like the time, and it can take you out of your creative space. It definitely, when I get into that side, it's hard for me to then get back and really get into my characters and developing story. And interesting conflicts that go through. So I think that's when finding your biorhythms, again, so much of this, I'm going to keep saying it. I know I sound like a broken record player, is understanding yourself, knowing your own mind, knowing your own body and your biorhythms. What tasks are you better at? And I think Tom Peters also wrote a book called Eat the Frog.
Yes.
Yeah. And that works really well. Of eating the frog concept is, imagine if you woke up and the first thing you had to do as soon as you woke up is eat a live frog. Anything you did after that moment would probably be much better than that.
Yeah.
So it's taking the worst things in your to-do list that you have to do and doing them first to get them out of the way. And then you can be creative. You can have that sense of really being able to do the work that you love, which is why you're doing this in the first place.
Well, there's a lot. It sounds to me like what you're saying is there is an extraordinary amount of discipline that it takes for us to do things that we know we may not like to do. To do something really hard in the morning. First of all, I love the morning is when I want to conquer things that require brain power. So I do naturally tend to gravitate towards those more difficult tasks in the morning for that reason. Just like that's how I studied getting all my insurance licenses and my financial planning licenses. I remember waking up really early in the morning, like from 6 to 9, I would just study for those tests because that was my ideal time. But there are some people that are night owls and they prefer the nighttime. It's really finding out when do you do your best work on the most challenging tasks.
Right.
So
knowing your biorhythms. I mean, I was writing, so I'd be working a 10, 11-hour day as a CFO of a company that was growing at 40%, and then come home and do my writing in the evening. Now I'm single and I don't have children or animals, so it's a little bit easier for me. It is so much harder, and I have so much respect for entrepreneurs who go out and start and they have a family, because it's really, your risk level is a whole nother, and I knew that's why I didn't have children, is I knew I was going to take this level of risk, and sometimes it doesn't work, as I lost everything after 9/11. I lived on ramen noodles for a year, but I can't have a child do that. So it's really understanding, where your risk is, what your risk tolerance is, how you can go about these things. And it's not going to be ideal. It's never going to be ideal.
I mean, there are going to be, you want to get to a point though, where it becomes ideal in some form of success. Right. Because otherwise, why would you do it?
Well, it's not going to be, let me clarify. Sorry. Thank you for that. Yeah. It's not going to be ideal in the beginning.
Yeah. In the beginning. In the beginning,
it's not. And then the thing that keeps you moving is like, you're so happy you get to do the work that you really want to do. Yes, it comes with these other responsibilities, but you really get to focus on the thing that you're really talented at, that you're really good at, where you really make a difference at. And hopefully that feeling of that you're doing the work that you want to do, or maybe you're just happy to be making the money that you knew you could be making. That's fine too. I don't care if that's whatever motivates you works. But as long as you realize that's what you're getting, and it's going to be tough in the beginning.
You actually bring up a good point, because some people aren't motivated by money. They're motivated by time or freedom. Right. And so that's, though, when you are starting your business, you kind of have to, at some point, sit down and figure out what the goals are of all of it, which is why we've been doing this now for 51 minutes. So why don't we wrap up? Do you have a last tip? Oh, yeah. See, Marquetta, the worst part is the admin spreadsheets. Yep.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree. And I'm good at it. And I still hate doing it. So I get you. And I totally understand it. It's the crap part, but I'm gonna cuss again. This is Elizabeth Gilbert who said this. Every business, and I've seen this, I've worked in 36 different industries.
Sorry, just saying hi to Anna.
Hi, Anna. I don't know. That every business has a shit sandwich. Figure out what that shit sandwich is, and you figure out how to way to eat it. And if you can't eat the shit sandwich, don't do that business.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have it. Everyone has it. I've worked in 37 different industries. They all have a shit sandwich that you're going to have to eat. Maybe it's the admin. Maybe it's the business development. Maybe it's the regulations, right? Maybe it's dealing with government red tape, which is horrible. But figure out what that shit sandwich is, and then go, all right, I'm going to figure out a way to learn to eat that.
Yeah.
And be happy with it. It's like not, again, so much of this is a mental game and a personal development to say, I will not let these things control my day.
You know, it's interesting because to me, when I hear you saying that, some of the things, the theme of, planning, strategizing, networking, and there, you have to pick. You have to know what your strong suit is, and then you have to pick how can I fly by the seat of my pants in certain areas? Because there are areas you cannot fly by the seat of your pants because maybe you're not good at that thing. So you have to, in order to take advantage of what skills you have. So in other words, like, I'm not really too afraid to go on camera, but I still prepare. But like, knowing that you were going to be sitting right next to me, maybe I didn't completely get, obsessed about preparation, because I figured, all right, well, we'll just talk it through. We'll talk it through. There are things you can fly by the seat of your pants, but you have to know what they are ahead of time. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that's just being prepared. Why don't we read Anna's question? She said something.
I don't think it was a question.
Or a comment.
So eat the biggest frog first. Yeah. My biorhythm is get all the little tasks out of the way so you can tackle the big frog. I've tried the other way. It doesn't work for me. Well, see, that's exactly
what I'm talking about. Yep. You need to understand yourself and your biorhythms. My slow time is 2 to 3 o'clock. I do things that are basically mindless.
Yeah.
From 2 to 3 o'clock, because that's my downtime. I can set my watch to I get tired, whether I eat lunch or don't eat lunch or whatever at that time. So I don't do certain things at that point in time. Know your biorhythms. Know when you can do it. For some people, I get up first thing and I do these things. And you got to know yourself. So there's not one hard and fast rule for everything. You got to figure this shit out for yourself. Yeah. You really got to, and I don't mean to be flippant about it, but you really do got to figure yourself out. When you figure yourself out and figure out how your mind and body works, you will be so much more efficient and you'll be a happier person, to be honest.
It's true. Well, on that note, just want to thank everybody for tuning in with us and for your comments. Really appreciate you checking in. Marquetta, thanks for being with us. Tim Sohn and Anna, so nice to see you. And thank you, Chris.
Yeah, welcome to go out to my website.
Where should people go to find you, especially your novel?
Yep. it's chriskjones.com. And my handles on Instagram are headcase, CKJ_headcase.
No, wait, Twitter's headcase_novel.
Yeah, that's Twitter, but Instagram is CKJ_headcase. And I think Facebook, LinkedIn is Christopher K. Jones. I know I have a common name. It's really tough, but Christopher K. Jones. And any other questions directly, you can email me at headcase@chriskjones.com. I'll try my best to answer your questions if you have them. And I wish everyone who's either thinking about starting a business or they started one, I wish you all the best of luck in that your journey. And it's going to be hard, and embrace the suck, because it'll be so much worth it. It'll be so worth it, like, knowing at the end of the day you've helped people, you made some money for you and your family, and you're able to achieve your dreams. And it is possible. If I can do it, anyone can do it.
Yep.
This is someone who, struggled to get out of college, and but
is that the right website?
chriskjones.com. You got it. Yeah, that's.
Excuse me. Oh my gosh, I can't hold it in anymore. I had to cough. Yes, Anna, I would love to see you. Chris is from Terrytown. He lives in Terrytown, so he came up to here to Connecticut to visit us. But hope to see you very soon. All right, thanks everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Bye. Ciao.